Public Radio fires Leonard Lopate and Jonathan Schwartz. New York Public Radio said Thursday it fired Leonard Lopate and Jonathan Schwartz, two longtime hosts, after investigations found they violated company standards for providing an inclusive, appropriate, and respectful work environment. Lopate and Schwartz were hosts on WNYC, which is owned by New York Public Radio. "We recognize that Leonard Lopate and Jonathan Schwartz have made many contributions to New York Public Radio, and we are deeply saddened to have to take these steps," the company said in a statement. "But our higher commitment continues to be to ensure an inclusive and respectful environment for our staff, guests and listeners." In a report Thursday, WNYC called it a stunning end for two of the station's most recognizable voices. Recent allegations of inappropriate behavior prompted an investigation into Lopate. New York Public Radio said. It also said a previous substantiated investigation in February of inappropriate remarks that Lopate made to staff resulted in one-on-one anti-harassment training as well as a warning. According to independent reporting by WNYC, some producers on Lopate's show described a turbulent workplace with a host who has exhibited emotional outbursts and, they said, has made sexually suggestive comments. Lopate has won a number of awards, including a George Foster Peabody Award. Other producers told WNYC they couldn't imagine Lopate saying anything inappropriate. "I've known Leonard for a very long time, and he's never said anything sexually suggestive at all," Susie Stultz, who has worked intermittently at the show since 1996, told WNYC's reporters. "I am profoundly grieved because I think it's so unfair. He's such a good guy." But WNYC reports that it had learned about 4 individuals who came forward with complaints about Lopate in 2017. 2 based on recent incidents and 2 more that occurred years ago. Lopate told WNYC it was possible he made some of the comments, calling one alleged incident a Groucho moment, but he told WNYC, "I've never crossed any lines." WNYC reporter Jessica Gould said Lopate said immediately after the decision that he is totally shocked and really sad, and he believes the decision is unjust. The Twitter account for the Leonard Lopate Show @LeonardLopate had been renamed Thursday afternoon to WNYC at midday. According to a tweet from the account, there will continue to be midday programming from 12 to 2 p.m. from Lopate's producers. The show tweeted, "Leonard has been a fixture of WNYC and a New York institution for over 30 years, and we deeply thank our loyal audience of listeners for all their support." A separate probe involving Schwartz took place following multiple complaints of inappropriate behavior earlier this month. Those complaints followed others made as recently as last month that led to disciplinary action, New York Public Radio said. According to the independent reporting by WNYC, the earliest complaint against Schwartz dated back to 2000. WNYC reported a second complaint in 2014 that Schwartz frequently commented on a colleague's appearance, making her feel uncomfortable. When asked about the incident by WNYC News, Schwartz reportedly said, "Can't a man say, 'You look good'? Gee, you're attractive?" Both Schwartz and Lopate were placed on leave on December 6, WNYC reported. "This episode in my life truly is the most hurtful, outrageous and saddest I've ever experienced and more," Schwartz earlier told the station. Schwartz declined to comment to WNYC reporter Ilya Meritz. On December 14, WNYC's Board of Trustees meeting was open to the public, and CEO Laura Walker wrote a letter to listeners a day later restating the station's commitment to live up to its values. "A respectful, inclusive work environment is not a privilege," she wrote. "It's a fundamental right." Speaking to WNYC on Thursday, Meritz said, "This has been the most tumultuous month in the 16 years I've worked here." Meritz said changes could come to WNYC's management structure, and there are several reviews underway. Gould told WNYC that the station's leadership is committed to getting listeners' trust back. In November, an article on New York Magazine's The Cut alleged sexual harassment and bullying by the Takeaway host John Hockenberry, who had left the station in September. Hockenberry issued a statement saying, "Looking back, my behavior was not always appropriate and I'm sorry." New York Public Radio fires WNYC hosts Leonard Lopate and Jonathan Schwartz. New York Public Radio on Thursday fired Leonard Lopate and Jonathan Schwartz, two popular and longtime personalities on WNYC, after recent allegations of inappropriate behavior. The company said it acted after outside investigators had finished looking into accounts that the men had violated standards of workplace conduct. Mr. Lopate, 77, and Mr. Schwartz, 79, were suspended earlier this month. New York Public Radio, the owner of WNYC, said both men had a history of being accused of improper actions and then facing disciplinary action from the organization. Before the most recent complaints of inappropriate remarks surfaced against Mr. Lopate earlier this month, the company said it opened an investigation in February into similar allegations. Mr. Lopate was then given a warning and told to complete one-on-one anti-harassment training, the company said. Mr. Lopate had been a host on WNYC for more than 30 years. New York Public Radio said Mr. Schwartz, who was the subject of multiple complaints of improper remarks and behavior earlier this month, had previously been disciplined for other indiscretions. Mr. Schwartz, who joined WNYC in 1999 and hosted the Jonathan channel for the station, is known for his commentary on jazz, pop and his expertise on Frank Sinatra. Continue reading the main story. Related coverage. WNYC suspends Leonard Lopate and Jonathan Schwartz. Dec. 6, 2017. How tough is it to change a culture of harassment? Ask women at 4. Dec. 19, 2017. The number Me Too moment. How to be a good bystander. Dec. 12, 2017. Before firing Mr. Lopate and Mr. Schwartz, investigators interviewed both men and multiple witnesses. The company said. Mr. Schwartz, in a statement sent by his lawyer, Mark Conkle, said, "I profoundly disagree, and am extremely disappointed with WNYC's decision today." Mr. Lopate was unavailable for comment. After he was placed on leave, Mr. Lopate told the New York Times that he was really quite shocked and upset by the decision and vowed that he had never done anything inappropriate on any level. In an internal memo circulated to employees, Laura R. Walker, the chief executive of New York Public Radio, wrote that this is an extremely difficult time for everyone at NYPR and said that WNYC producers would be at work developing new programming that invites necessary conversations and addresses the most important, intriguing issues in American culture and the way we live now in New York. Another well-known WNYC headliner, John Hockenberry, who hosted The Takeaway until he retired in August, was accused this month by several women of sexual harassment, unwanted touching and bullying. Allegations have also emerged against several other powerful men in public radio, including Michael Orisks, who led NPR's news division, Garrison Kaler, the creator and retired host of A Prairie Home Companion for Minnesota Public Radio, and David Sweeney, NPR's chief news editor. Jennifer Halliton-Russell, a spokeswoman for New York Public Radio, declined to detail the nature of the allegations against the two hosts. "We recognize that Leonard Lopate and Jonathan Schwartz have made many contributions to New York Public Radio and we are deeply saddened to have to take these steps," she said in a statement. "But our higher commitment continues to be to ensure an inclusive and respectful environment for our staff, guests and listeners." WNYC hosts Leonard Lopate, Jonathan Schwartz fired following investigation. WNYC hosts Leonard Lopate and Jonathan Schwartz have been fired after being put on indefinite leave earlier this month over accusations of inappropriate behavior. The station's parent organization, New York Public Radio, said on Thursday that it terminated the employment of the well-known radio hosts following two separate investigations overseen by outside counsel. These investigations found that each individual had violated our standards for providing an inclusive, appropriate, and respectful work environment, said NYPR spokesperson Jennifer Hallahan-Roussel. In each investigation, outside investigators interviewed multiple witnesses as well as the hosts themselves. The investigation into Leonard Lopate's conduct was prompted by recent allegations of inappropriate behavior. Following a previous substantiated investigation in February of this year of inappropriate remarks made by Lopate to staff, Roussel said in a statement provided to CNN. That previous investigation resulted in one-on-one anti-harassment training for him and a warning to Lopate that he was creating an uncomfortable work environment. An investigation into Schwartz's behavior was prompted by multiple complaints of inappropriate behavior received earlier this month and followed previous complaints, including as recently as November of this year, that were investigated and substantiated by New York Public Radio and resulted in disciplinary action at those times. Roussel said, "We recognize that Leonard Lopate and Jonathan Schwartz have made many contributions to New York Public Radio and we are deeply saddened to have to take these steps." She added, "But our higher commitment continues to be to ensure an inclusive and respectful environment for our staff, guests and listeners." WNYC reported that Schwartz said earlier this week that this episode in his life was the most hurtful, outrageous and saddest I've ever experienced. After being put on leave earlier this month, Lopate told CNN that he was baffled by this and that "I'm sure that any honest investigation will completely clear me." The investigations into Lopate and Schwartz came after The Cut published a report that included allegations of inappropriate touching and bullying by another WNYC personality, former radio host John Hockenberry, who apologized, saying, "My behavior was not always appropriate." Schwartz declined to comment about the termination. Lopate called the decision unjust and told WNYC that he was really sad and shocked.